Welcome to another episode of the Trail Network podcast. I'm Hilary Yang, and today I'm joined by Leah Yingling and Lauren Peretz. Lauren just finished third place at this past weekend's Havalina 100-miler in a blazing fast time of 15 hours and 50 seconds. Lauren's also a physician and a mother, as well as being a super fast runner, and she's found an impressive life balance as she pursues being as fast as she possibly can in a sport that just keeps getting faster. We are so excited to sit down and chat with Lauren today. We hope you enjoy it as much as we did. All right, we are here with Lauren Peretz today on the Trail Network podcast. I'm Hilary Yang. We've got Leah Yingling as your co-host. Lauren, we are super, super excited to chat with you. And we were just starting to talk about your DOMs and all the good stuff when we hopped on. So how are you?
I'm good. I was saying that I didn't know what DOMS was, or I've never experienced it. It's usually just every day is slightly better than the next. But yesterday I was like, I'm a rock star. I feel great. And today I'm like, oh my God, I can barely move. This is getting worse. Oh no, what's going on? So everybody's telling me it's totally normal and I should have expected it. And I never have. So I'm just glad that it's normal and I'm not dying.
Lauren, that's impressive.
I'm so amazed you made it this far, right? Like without getting DOMs that badly.
Yeah.
Because you've done some big races.
Yeah, right. And it's always like the first day I feel and the next day I'm like, oh, look, like I got out of bed without like pre-planning my next like 4 moves. And it was the exact opposite this time. So I don't know.
I'm the queen of DOMs over here. I can tell you how to get DOMs on a 6-mile training run. Just about everything. So I'm very impressed by your inability to get DOMs, Lauren. So yeah, you went right back to work today, didn't you?
I did. I had 2 surgeries this morning and clinic in the afternoon. So
tell us a little bit about that. I think something that really makes you unique, and I know Hilary and I have been chatting about this, but like you're just way more than a runner. You're a mom, you're a physician, you really seem to do it all, and I really want to try to dig into that a little bit today.
Yeah. Well, it was sort of all working out well, but then major life disruption last April. And then just started my new practice in August. So that was really the biggest upheaval of it all. But yeah, so I have a 9 and 12-year-old, which is nice because now they're a little bit more independent, so it's not quite as demanding, although taxiing services are a lot. And then working gynecology. Mostly now I do gynecology, so I did drop obstetrics about a year and a half ago, which was the best decision I ever made for myself, but gynecology. So it's a lot of in-person hours, which I think is the only drawback. But I love women's health and love operating, doing surgery. So that's what kind of keeps me doing this and not retiring.
Man, that is a wild life balance though. Like those are all very full-time things that you're sort of juggling all at the same time.
Yeah, it is. It makes you a very efficient human, a very uber organized human, and having a lot of people to be like, I forgot, can somebody go pick up a kid because I'm stuck here? Or, what run do I have and how do I make that work with my daughter's a competitive gymnast and my son's playing soccer, and when is their games and where are their games and how am I going to make it all work. So a lot of pre-planning is also involved. And then a partner who's a partner, right? Like he and I split this up so we can both do life as well and aren't just 100% taxis.
Yeah, that's so incredible and inspiring to me. I've been following you on Strava probably over the last year, and your ability to get in your morning runs, regardless of what you have going on, is very inspiring to somebody that's like 6 and 7 p.m. runner every day. But also your ability to do all the little things too. Like you're always prioritizing strength training and just getting it in where you can. And I think that's something that makes a great 100-mile runner, is somebody that can kind of roll with the punches, be resilient, get through it, and
Right.
make no excuses. And that seems to characterize really who you are at your core.
Yeah. I think it all started when somebody mentioned to me on a training run that basically up until that point where before I was running ultras, my whole life has trained me to just keep going, med school, residency, kids, if you want to do anything, you gotta just do it. And so I was like, I think my life has trained me to suffer and just keep going. Maybe I would be good at ultra distances. So that's literally how I got into it, was somebody making that exact same remark. And then, yeah, it's one of those things where it's I am not the best at getting up in the morning, but having people to meet me, and I will be there. If one other human will meet me. And that's the only way that I've made morning running a routine, is that accountability, even though I'm if I don't do it, it's not happening. But my ability to even procrastinate that, and having one accountability partner or more, if it works out, it keeps me in the morning. And then it's a lot of organizing everything, right? So I can come straight to work. I do have a shower in my office, which is nice. And then I'm doing strength, showering, putting makeup on, getting half dressed. My office staff is coming in there and they're just used to me being any sorts of dressed, undressed, weight training, maybe stretching as they walk in and ask me questions. So multitasking, which is not probably the most effective at times, but doing things like that, I don't think I've ever stretched without simultaneously putting on makeup, so I can be ready for the day.
That's incredible.
I love that you talk about having a network or a community for support in the mornings, because I'm also very much not a morning person. And you always hear people say oh, there's always enough hours in the day. You just get up earlier. And I'm I don't love that solution. But I do feel
means you got to go to bed earlier. So
yeah, right. Which is it just doesn't happen very well. But I do feel if you have someone meeting you, you're way less likely to bail than you are on yourself, right? And I think it's just something you need to know.
Right. Yeah. I know I'll be I need to start at 6:30. If I'm doing on my own, it's probably 7:15. And I'm I should probably go, and this isn't going to happen. And then I'm all sorts of late. And so having even just one person who's going to you're more likely to go, because you don't want to, leave them hanging. Right. So you're more likely to go, but also on time. So that, I think, is my savior in the mornings.
Yeah, Lauren, it seems to in Colorado Springs, you kind of have your road-ish running community and then also your trail running community. And I've always, from my following you over the last couple of years, have seen you kind of at the intersection of both of those groups. You kind of tap into both. You have people crewing you from both those communities. Talk a little bit about how you incorporate both those elements into your training, because you are somebody that has a very speedy road background as well, but you've integrated so nicely and at a professional level in the sport on the trail scene the last couple of years. So talk a little bit about both of those pieces.
Yeah. So I think, maybe it's becoming more and more trail, although the trails here are at such easy access. And when I started running more, it was I have nowhere else to run but on trail, unless I wanted to do the same one trail over and over again, or path, I suppose, over and over again. So just is doing shorter races that had a lot of road runners in them, even though they were on trail. And kind of, you make your friends. I feel like running is not just a sport. It's also my social network. It's my therapy and my friends, and I don't have a ton of extra time in my life. So that's where I'm catching up with people. That's where we're talking about anything from, small or big problems, or, and stuff like that. So kind of making that friend group, and most of them were road runners. And I forced them to do trail every once in a while. But they keep me fast. Right. I like to do workouts with them where I am just pathetically slow on the track as they're zipping around, because it keeps you fast. And it also, sometimes, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I feel sometimes I do a trail workout and I'm I don't know if that was good or not. I have no idea. Hard. So I think that was okay, but was it actually fast? And there's something really nice about a road workout or a track workout where you're that split. That's a good time. I'm doing okay. So I like kind of going back and forth with some trail workouts, some road or track workouts to get kind of like, where am I actually at? Like numbers wise, some, I suppose, some quantitative data, right? And then, the trails, I guess, on my own as far as workouts usually, but yeah, they just keep me fast and then have the fun on the trail when they want to join me there.
Do you have a coach, or do you like, how do you balance that side of it and the more like structured workouts with your crazy schedule?
Yeah, I do. Megan Roche is my coach. So I think I started
Nice.
working with her like almost, I think she was just about to have her first. So it's been like 2 years that I've been with her. I don't know. She gives me a lot of time workouts, like 2 by 12 minutes, and my girlfriend's training for a half. And she's like, I got 2 by 2 miles. I'm like, that's
Yeah,
close
that's
enough. We'll do them together. Yeah. So, and then sometimes I have to clarify. I was like, does this have to be on trail with vert, or can I do this on, not on anything with vert? So yeah, so I just clarify with her if I need to do it specific. Otherwise, it's probably going to be with, I'm probably going to be on the track.
just going to modify it a little bit. Yeah.
Close enough.
Lauren,
I mean, that's the thing about coaching. You got to make it work for the rest of your life. And if you have the rest of your people are kind of doing their own workout, right? I always find that's the hardest part. If you're very stuck on like, nope, my coach says this, like I can only do this. And that you kind of burn out that way faster, I think.
Well, and I'm not very good at pushing myself. When I am doing any sort of, I'm like,
Really?
oh, I'm supposed to be running hard. I guess I should focus. I like space cadet when I'm trying to do workouts. So having somebody that I'm either like following or like working with helps my workout. So sometimes it's like, it's not the same, but I'll get more results out of doing this with somebody than I would on my own anyways. And it's way more fun to, suffer together, work at them by yourself. So I always kind of lean towards that. If it's not too specific.
No, I like that. That's something I can definitely relate to. Anytime I'm on a workout by myself, I'm more likely to give up, but more likely to like get way less out of myself. So yeah, leaning into the local community, your buds, somebody to pull you along, even if it's not your prescribed workout. I'm totally on board with that.
Right. Better than nothing at all is what I always think.
I also think too, like that's an interesting strength as the trail scene gets more competitive, because I feel like you didn't used to run with like packs of women all together, but like, I mean, we'll kind of dive into a little bit about your race this weekend and why you have DOMs to begin with, but like there was like a pack, like all of you guys at Havalina 100 were running together for a long time. And I know I've had friends who find that really mentally hard if you're not used to having like people right on you, and sort of I feel like if you do your workouts, if you're kind of in this environment of like, where the limits are of what everyone else is doing, like it's like good psychologically, right?
Yeah, or even just like the number of times I've been like, just hold on to them. We'll be fine. Just keep holding on. Like act like you're normal and not dying. And
they're hurting too.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like, why am I the only one who feels like I'm going to die as we're going up this? It's okay. Just pretend like all is fine and just follow along. And that's kind of like sometimes the beginning of a race is like, oh, I don't know. My body's like not loving this. And we're like 2 miles into 100. This is going to be bad. And it's like, nope, just latch onto somebody in front of you and don't think about it because that's what
5 miles from now, it could chill out. You never know.
Right?
Yeah,
so true.
I feel like you often, at least for the last couple of years, when you first came on my radar, I think was when I started doing single track podcast race previews. And the way I always talked about you was you are always getting top 10 in golden ticket races. And up to that point, let's say this was back in like 2023, you had not gotten a golden ticket yet, but you were consistently putting yourself in these golden ticket races, but always being in the top 10, but never quite getting into that golden ticket position. Until this past spring at Black Canyon 100K, you earned a golden ticket, getting third place. Talk a little bit about what guided your journey the last couple years, if you were specifically golden ticket hunting, and what that's kind of looked like since, because you got a top 15 finish at Western States this year, just outside the top 10, despite running an extremely fast time, and you kind of find yourself on the golden ticket hunt again.
Yeah, again, right? Yeah. I think, I started running and I think it's that like, am I good at this? Is this something that I'm okay at? And at the same time, like learning a lot about the sport because didn't grow up with trails and ultra running being a normal thing. And so learning about things like Western States, and I was like, oh, that's kind of curious. Like, I think I want to try that. I probably won't get in until I'm 70, so that's cool. Maybe I'll see if how I do in these bigger races, right? Kind of like almost like kind of that meter of like, am I good? Like, let me get into bigger competitive races to see kind of where I stack up. And to learn a lot just from watching other people do it. And so that's why I kept on doing them. Yeah, I had that like, I'd love to do Western States as like that pipe dream at some point, but really also just curious, like, am I good? Right? Is like, what do I look like in a really big competitive field? And I think that's why I kind of started doing them. And then as I was like, kind of getting closer and closer to that line, I was like, oh, maybe I can get a ticket. Still, I think it was a pipe dream. I think even when I crossed Black Canyon finish line, I still didn't think it was real that I'd actually ever get a golden ticket. So, yeah, I was there, but it wasn't why I was doing it. Ultimately, it was to see what I could do. And then kind of got that, I suppose, surprise. Not surprised anybody else but me, apparently. Surprised at getting that golden ticket. And then had an okay day at Western States. I feel like I made some dumb rookie mistakes. And I just want to go back and like, redo, which is why I was like, all right, I guess we're doing this again. I don't know.
I love hearing you talk about the surprise in a sense that you had at Black Canyon, because after this past weekend, my husband Mike was out there taking photos, and he now has finish line photos of you at Black Canyon and then at Havalina 100 this weekend. And he told me after we were going through his photos together, he said, I just love Lauren's expressions at the finish lines. He said she has the best expressions. She's always just like shocked about what just happened out there and what she accomplished. And he said those are some of the best reactions to look at. So it's really cool to hear you talk about that element of surprise, because I think you showcase it and you embody it entirely whenever you cross that finish line.
Right. I mean, it probably comes from a little bit of disbelief. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish. Like, I feel like my A goal is always finish. Right. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen. So like, that's always a surprise. But then when you've always been like you said, kind of top 10, like I just assume I'm always kind of in that range, but never like that next step, which is why I think that's why it was like such a shock, because I just always assume that's where I am. Right. And I'm just trying to get to the finish line and finish.
Yeah, Lauren. And then I imagine this weekend's Havalina 100, you came out with what, a 69-minute PR on the course?
Yeah. I was so excited. It was bittersweet, but I was super excited.
Yeah.
That was like my secret time.
That's amazing. Like, that's incredible. Like to knock an hour and 12 minutes or whatever it was off. Like but it's like also shows just the depth of the field, because like, you were third this year as opposed to fourth last year, but like an hour and 12 minutes faster, that must have felt kind of wild.
Right. I know. Yeah, I know. That was like my secret. I'm not telling anybody time that I was like, I think on a good day I can do this. And that's like all you can ask from yourself, right? Like super bummed that I didn't get a golden ticket. I don't know what I'll do. I have no idea if I'll try for another one. But like, that's the best I could get out of myself. And it was what I thought I could do. So, I mean, that's half the battle there. So, super happy with my time. Yeah. A little bit bummed, but, I can't be sad if
you ran 15 hours, like almost flat, 15 hours and 50 seconds, right? Like that's insane.
Right. I know. Right. So, that was pretty stoked. I think, last year I want to say 1609, I think.
Dang.
Yeah. So I think that's 69-minute PR.
That was wild, considering this year was record-breaking heat. Like, that affected everybody throughout the day. Like, the women especially just ran phenomenally. Like, all of your times were so fast. You Yeah, how much was that 15-hour mark impacting you and the pace you were running towards the end? Because I do think you had one of the fastest fifth, if not, I think you had the fastest fifth lap finish stretch from the last aid station to the finish. So I can imagine you kind of had that time goal lingering in your mind.
I didn't. See, this is where I'm so my pacer, Emily, who's like the nicest, kindest human in the entire world, she said something to me like, "We got to get going." And I was like, yeah, I'm going. And then she must have said something. And I was like, why? What time are we at? She's like, don't you look at your watch. And that was at the beginning of the fifth loop. And so I was like, you're right. You still have to go up and get to Jackass. Like that 10-mile stretch is unpleasant on the fifth loop. And so I was like, all right, just get to the top. Like I had a not so great third loop and I was like, you've done all your walking. You're no longer allowed to walk. So like just get to the top without walking. And then coming down, I don't know. I feel like I try not to look at my watch for many reasons, mostly so I don't fall. But I feel like I might have attempted to look at my watch to see what time it is, but ultimately ended up didn't. I don't know. But I had no idea what my actual time was until afterwards. And then the clock there wasn't the actual time.
Yeah.
It was like some other random time. So it wasn't until my crew was like, "You did it," and I was like, "I did what?" And they're like, "Your time." They told me 1:51, or 15 hours and 1 minute, which I was just as ecstatic about. So no, I wasn't allowed to be. Emily wouldn't tell me why we were going faster. So yeah, I'm just a clueless runner out there who's like, just keep going forward. It's really
From our perspective, it was like amazing to watch because you were just like picking people off. It was just like you were so steady moving up through the field. Do you want to walk us through a little bit more just like your day in general and like your heat, like your cooling strategies? Obviously, that was the big topic of the day, but just like how did you kind of stay at that point where you were able to push so hard on those last few laps?
Yeah, I mean, I do generally better in the heat. Like I actually anything below 50 degrees and I am cold. I have really bad Raynaud, so my hands go numb. Like I can't function. So I am better in the heat, but I was nervous. I was like, ooh, this is a different level of heat. I've always done, like I did Havalina the last 2 years, did Western States. I've done Black Canyon several years. I've never felt hot in any of those races. This was the first race that I felt hot. I felt like what I was doing, putting the ice in the ice bandanas in my hat, like it was evaporating or something before it cooled me off. Like it was kind of odd. I accidentally picked up a giant piece of ice out of the whatever the thing they had it in, and the guy was like, "Let me break it up for you." I was like, "No time," and just shoved it down my sports bra. I mean, this thing was like up in my neck, and it was the best thing I ever did because now I have this giant piece of ice. I'm like rubbing it on my arms and my stomach for when I felt like I was getting hot again. So that was like the biggest mistake or biggest accidental like thing that I kind of did. And then as it got smaller, I would just hold it in my hands so that my hands would get cold and then kept on rubbing on myself because, yeah, it was, I guess I've never felt hot before in a race until this time. Lap 3 is from Coyote to Jackass. I got like super overheated. I think they didn't have a piece of ice. So it's just like it was in my hat, and I got like that kind of like dizzy, like what is happening here? I had to walk a lot of it, like a lot more than I was hoping to. And part of me kind of was bummed, like, oh, if I would have not had to walk that, would I have gone even faster, or was kind of taking it sort of chill during that really hot spot, right? Getting more fluids in than I would have normally done, getting a lot more salt tabs down than I normally would have. Did that kind of save me for the last 2 loops? Because that was definitely a rough lap. And then I think I got another giant piece of ice at Jackass at the bottom of that 3rd loop and then kept going. And then by then, for the 4th loop was still pretty warm, but not bad.
Yeah.
Like I think it was like a normal hot. And then the last loop, like almost feeling cold when I would dunk like the water on me. It's like, oh, it's kind of chilly. And so, so yeah. So then it was just like go, right? Like, you're in fifth, which I was like, you can't do worse than you did last year, right? Like those little things you say to yourself. So I was like, just keep going. I think I passed Corinne like just a couple miles from whatever the headquarters were. And I think passing Erin was like the biggest surprise because I didn't know where she was. I didn't know what was going on. When I passed her, I was like, holy moly. And I think that was maybe the motivation for that last, 4 or 5 miles. I was like, oh, who else is in front? Or is she right behind me? Like, is she chasing me this whole time? I kept on asking Emily. I was like, is she right there? Is she right behind? She's like, I can't tell. Everybody has headlamps on. Like, you can't see anything. And so I was like, okay, then just go. Yeah. And then it was just that desire to be done and not wanting to be passed, and or maybe getting another person, which would have been awesome. But yeah. So no, I didn't know. It's more of a story. I didn't know where I was, how I was doing.
Thank you, Osprey, for sponsoring this episode of the show. Osprey packs are known for being durable, sustainable, and comfortable. I've been seeing a ton of Duro and Dyna trail running hydration packs on the trail, and I'm sure you have too. I also have to rave about my new favorite luggage, the Daylight Carry-On Travel Pack 44 liter. It is the biggest carry-on allowed on an airplane, and wow, have I been amazed at the amount of gear that this can carry. It's shocking. You can use it as a duffel or a backpack, which is super handy, and it has 2 stretch water bottle pockets, which I love. An open suitcase style with full zip opening. Honestly, it's the perfect travel bag for those on the go. The Daylight Carry-On Travel Pack 44 liter. Try it out at osprey.com or check on the Pack Finder link to find the perfect pack for you.
Normally, if you saw somebody's Strava kind of like dip the way it did on your third lap, you'd be like, that person's not coming back. But Lauren, you stuck with it. And I feel like that's got to be one of the trickier spots to navigate in a race as competitive as Havalina. Oftentimes we see a lot of runners start to not have their day and just be like, you know what, it's not worth it. Like, I'm not having the exact day I want. Like, let's save it for another day. You stuck with it. Yeah. And then you saw what could happen and you saw laps 4 and 5 through and ended up being able to finish so fast. I can't what are you telling yourself whenever you're walking uphill for however many miles on the way to Jackass Junction and having those feelings like, crap, my day's getting away from me?
Yeah, I mean, it's overpowering, right? Because you're kind of in it and it's hard to see clearly, right? When you're just in it and that your pity party is real strong, right? And I think I got passed on that climb too. And yeah, I think Anna passed me on that climb. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you have that thought of like, not embarrassment. I don't want to say embarrassment, right? But like, well, I don't want to make a fool of myself and like finish really poorly. Is it better just to call it a day? Not my day, not whatever. Good learning. We'll learn from this and then move on. And then I always think like, but how many times do I tell myself that in races? And then you just keep going and you can kind of see, and usually by the time you're either even worse, in which case probably going to call it, or you're like, oh, look at me, I'm going again. But yeah, I definitely didn't think, I thought I was going to drop after that third loop. I think I took down like 7 salt tabs at Jackass.
It's a lot.
Fine. This kidneys aren't really happy right now, but and then I just was like, well, I got to run back, right? So, and then by the time I kind of got to the next aid station, I was like, oh, I'm moving okay. Maybe it's fine. I'll decide at the turnaround. And I don't even think I thought about it again. Like, I think I got to the headquarters and my crew was like, here's your pack, have a nice day, right? For my next one. Or I guess so I picked up my my crew or my pacer, and it was like, and we're off. And I don't even think I had time to think about it once I actually got to because I'd kind of already started to turn around, and then kept going. But yeah, I had the pity party. I had this is not my day. I don't want to embarrass myself. I guess I'll just drop here. Now my crew is going to be mad. They don't get to run. And now everybody's like all this time and energy, and now I'm going to, I had that full on pity party. And then I think it was just a matter of like, my crew not giving me, since my body wasn't failing, right? Like it wasn't unsafe for me to continue. Even if it wasn't very good, it was not unsafe, that they were just like, and here we go. And I'm like, okay. Right. And then the fourth loop, I felt probably the best I'd felt all day, which was odd. Like you don't think you're going to feel amazing from 60 to 80. Right. And I felt really good. My pacer, I think, got some heat or whatnot, but I dropped her. And I was like, I'm just going to keep going, I guess. And so, I guess you just never know what the day is going to be like. So, as long as it's not unsafe to continue, keep going and hope for the best.
It's probably a benefit of, I guess I can't decide if it's a benefit or not a benefit of being a doctor and being an ultra runner is you kind of know what is unsafe and what is safe and what signs and symptoms your body are giving you. So I think sometimes if you're not a health professional, you might get a little afraid of a little sign or symptom, but sometimes being a doctor serves you well in this case.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. And then I will say, Mike was so amazing on the last loop. He was there right as it was starting the fourth or the fifth loop. And he was like, this is podium pace. You got this. He's like, go inspire me. I was like, okay, I'll go inspire you. Like,
I love that.
So funny. Like little statements, and you're like, okay, I'll go do that. Like, you're so impressionable. So I think that's part of it too, is just like your crew being like lying to you. Like, I think my crew just lies to me. Like, you're doing great. I am. Okay, right? Just keep going.
Yeah, you could tell me anything at mile 80 of a 100-miler, and I think I would believe you.
Right? I know. I think I even said that. I was like, I'm pretty sure if I looked at my watch right now, I'm going like 6-minute flat pace, aren't I? Yeah. It's not what I'm going, but
your arms are going that fast, at least.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
I do love that, though. I mean, we all know that things turn around. We all know we have these lows in the middle of a race, but yet when you're out there in it, like somehow we forget every time, and like it's so easy to get stuck in that narrative. And, here we are with hindsight on our side being like, you got a podium finish at Havalina, like on such a crazy day. Like it's just sort of this wild thing that we constantly have to remind ourselves of every single time we run,
Yeah. Right. And I think, I don't know, I think I probably have more, maybe this is part of my age or something, but I feel like I start off low. Like I always feel really rough when I'm starting. And so I was actually thinking the other day, I was like, I wonder what it'd feel like to have a race where you feel amazing from the start to the finish. Like, what would that feel like? That'd be so fascinating. I have never experienced that. But that also probably, because I haven't, is also like, well, this always happens. Like, I always feel like this. Just keep going. And maybe it'll get better, is kind of my norm, as opposed to the opposite of like always feeling great. And so then also when you're like, oh, I'm having a bad, you're going to doomsday way quicker without that, like, yeah, this is you every time kind of like hindsight. So I wonder if that is part of it as to why I'm like, I'll just keep going and see what happens.
It could get better. Could get worse, but could get better. Is that what happened to you at Western States? Like, I saw you finish in the different parts around the course as I was kind of chasing you guys. But like, did you also feel like that was a day where you started struggling and then were able to pull yourself out of it? Or how did that one go for you?
Oh, that was just a gradual decline.
Literally.
I mean, I think starting uphill was helpful to kind of keep me in check. And then by the time I got to the top, and I'm totally blanking on the name of it now.
Escarpment.
Thank you. I was thinking entrapment. I was like, I don't think it's that.
Sort of. If you go too fast.
Yeah. But I got to the top of that and I was like, oh, and then I felt great. And then I was like, I think I should slow down because I think I caught up to you, Leah. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't pass her. That's a dumb idea. I was like, I'll just stick with them. Which was, and then I think we broke up at a aid station and then went down to the canyons. And I think I was slowing myself down too much and I blew my quads. Like I was, yeah. And so I was basically down to a walk when you're going along the river, which is like flat and not technical. And my quads were done. And so I was like, just get your Rucky Chucky and you'll ice them off and then maybe they'll be better. And I actually felt better until No Hands Bridge. And then I was like, I don't think I can finish. This isn't going to happen. That's my paces are like, you're an idiot. We're like 2 miles away. Come on, or whatever.
You cannot drop at Roby Point.
Yeah,
Not
right.
allowed.
Like, right. Like, but yeah, that last climb from No Hands Bridge to Roby Point. I mean, if you were told me I was going up Everest, I would have believed you. Like that felt impossible. It's probably not even 500 feet, but it felt impossible. And I don't know if that was just whatever, but yeah, it was blowing up my quads way early in the race and being down to a crawl along the easiest part of the whole day.
Lauren, what is up with you finding yourself in really tight races? I'm looking at the Western States results, and you had 14th and 15th place females, which was Kareth Arnold and Lottie Brings finishing about a minute behind you.
I know, right? I know. It's because I run scared really well.
Oh, that's amazing. And my favorite Lauren story from Western States this year was when we were going up Devil's Thumb. I'm like climbing up, I'm behind you. And I hear like voices that are not runners' voices. And it's like audio. And I start approaching Lauren and I'm like, is that an audio book? Is Lauren listening to an audio book out loud right now, going up the climb to Devil's Thumb? Turns out she was. What were you listening to?
My headphones died. Oh, it was, I'm forgetting her name, the Sarah J. Maas books. They're so bad.
I love that trashy audiobook.
Yeah, they are so naughty. And like my headphones died, which I felt really bad about, but I was like, well, here we go. I got to keep listening to this story. It's getting good. And I came into an aid station and somebody recognized it. And there was immediate like embarrassment on my part and like recognition on their part of like, yeah, we're at a really saucy scene right now, and I don't know how to get to this fast enough to turn it off. So I was like, and we're just going to listen to this aid station. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
It's sort of like being on an airplane when you're watching a movie and then the flight attendant comes around at that precise moment when the sex scene is on and everyone is awkward together. Like, you're just like,
Yeah, right? I know. Well, I was listening to Fourth Wing, which is just as naughty as the Sarah J. Maas books during Black Canyons. But my headphones worked that time, so no one was subjected to my...
I love that. I always wonder what people are listening to when you come into aid stations. I'm picturing just like intense, like pump me up music, but you're just like, tell me stories, like distract me from the pain.
Well, right? I mean, it totally is because it's one distraction, but also like what happens if a song comes on you don't like, or what happens if a podcast comes to an end? I don't want to have to like figure out how to go next or whatever. And I'm not smart enough to figure out how to do the tappy thingies. So I just want something that will play. I don't have to start, stop. I don't have to like, and if I don't pay attention to it, which is what a good running book is, you can not pay attention for a little bit and poof, it doesn't matter. You can just pick up right there and there it is. So if you're like talking with people or like mentally in a different spot, you can not listen to it. And then if you're like, oh, okay, now back in the zone, and you're just right back into the story, which I think is why those like kind of saucy books work better.
Just mindless. They're good.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You got to try that.
There are some that are good. If they're too slow or too complicated, or if they're too emotional and you're like sobbing in the middle of a run, that's a poor choice.
True. No Nicholas Sparks.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Lauren, we talked a little bit at the beginning of our episode about just the balance that you have as a mom, as a physician, as an elite level trail runner. When you come to races like Havalina, Western States, what does your support crew look like? Does your husband and your kids come out to involve themselves in your weekend? Do you guys kind of separate those two things? How do you incorporate family into the other part of your life that you love?
I mean, unfortunately, it's been, especially with all the kids' activities or just life and work, my husband and kids haven't come to a bunch of races. I think I had, my husband is like the world's worst crew. He crewed me at a race. He's not a runner. He crewed me at a race, canyons I did. And it was a bad day on top of not a good crew situation. So he kind of got fired from crewing. But I think it's also just like they take a lot out of you. And I think it's really hard to be as selfish as you need right before a race when you have little children and they don't really comprehend. Now that they're older, I think it's a little bit easier. Or even like your husband doesn't comprehend that, like, don't bother me. I'm going to lay here and you're going to force feed me like whatever I want. And that's the main goal of today. And I don't know if it's just my particular family or just but they just don't, I think it's more difficult, or maybe it's just me and I feel guilty being selfish. I feel like it's like selfish to be there in the first place and away from him. And now also while we're there, I'm also not going to be engaged. And so it's almost easier as like, oh, well, Eli's got a soccer game or Demi has a gymnastics meet, so they can't come. And so it's just been more of a girls' weekend, which I also highly enjoy that aspect of it too. So for Western States and for Havalina last year, they came out like Friday night for the Saturday morning. So that way they're not there as kind of long. But then usually they're not. Usually it's just my crew and I who go out. I kind of wish they were there more often, but like I said, with what they have going on and kind of that, I guess, wanting to be more selfish without feeling guilty, it's just not worked out.
No, it's totally reasonable. And I think I like hearing the different perspectives and the different balances that people have, because I think there's so many people in the sport who are also parents, who are also working full time, who also are trying to make it work in their relationships and their parenting in the sport. And sometimes it looks like, yeah, we bring our whole family and partners along for the journey. And sometimes that's just not as realistic. And I think what you talk about represents probably a large portion of the ultra running community, that like you kind of realize what works, what doesn't, and try to incorporate them as much as you can. But oftentimes that doesn't necessarily mean all the pieces of the puzzle fall together like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like love them to be at the finish line, just not at the beginning parts, which is a little bit unreasonable to ask. Like, oh, wait, can you arrive after I start? Thanks, bye. So it just hasn't. Or like I said, sometimes I'm bummed about it, but in the moment, it's kind of just what works best for us. So, yeah.
I'm curious, Lauren, just kind of looking at your running over the last few years, like you're 41, you're kind of building your career in many ways as a runner, which I love. And I think, it's like the best part of the sport is that as women, we're sort of just like hitting our stride, like I feel like late 30s, early 40s is like this period of being really empowered and like who you are. Where do you see it going, and what's sort of the driving force, the motivator behind all of the running and like what you're pushing yourself towards right now?
Yeah, I mean, part of me is like really scared of like, oh gosh, how many more years do I have left? And people are like, oh, I'll just do that in a couple of years. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to be able to do in a couple of years. There's a bit of like that fear aspect. But then it is so like incredibly motivating to see people, women, just older and older doing so much more amazing. And maybe my clock isn't already ticking. To get these like bigger top performances. I think that was really awesome. I did the World Masters Trail Running Championships, and like seeing 7-year-olds just send, it was so cool to see. And it was like, don't feel like you have a ticking time clock. It may evolve, but this isn't the end just because it's, you're 41 or 43. So there's that. Like I said, part of me was a little bit nervous about it, scared about it, but I guess I'll just keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. I think I'm very internally motivated to see what I can do. And as long as I'm still motivated to do that, I'll just keep trying. And learning what it takes to do it at, 41, at 42, 43. What is it going to look like? How is it going to change? But if I'm kind of still enjoying it and still getting results that are making me proud, then I guess I'll keep trying.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, sorry, to piggyback on that, if you do a lot of strength training with your running, because I feel like that's super important. I'm feeling like I need to do a lot of that as I get older.
I dislike weight training a lot.
Me too.
It is very easy for me to skip that in a day or in a plan. But I have intentionally improved that over the last probably since for the last year. Definitely preparing for Western States, but even after Havalina last year, I was like, I think this is something I need to start. And more than just like once every 6 weeks, I pick up a weight. So more like intentional. So that's definitely something that I've added, kicking and screaming, but I've added it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like as much as I dislike it, I totally notice that difference. And, it's about finding something that works for you. I joined a climbing gym because I was like, well, I like moving my whole body rather than like some of my body. So like, I'll just like
my husband's a big rock climber. I am not good at it. So I just
feel like you would be. You got the arms and legs for it.
Yeah, I know. Slabby stuff, but I have no upper body strength.
True runner.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So I, that and PT, I think, have been the two biggest changes of like, I probably need to do a little prevention-y thingy, as well as like if something like that was the biggest thing before Havalina. Gosh, I want to say like maybe a month and a half ago. And my hip started, like my hip flexor, something was going on there. And I was like, I got to stop reacting and I got to get into like more PTs, like what their strength kind of adding it in there has been, or had, doing that more prehabbing, I guess. And
preventative. Yes.
Yeah. Preventative. Yeah. So anyway, so I have been going more regularly doing those exercises, not just strength training, but like their little, like, I don't know, PT magic stuff they make us do. As well. My MA was coming in to tell me about a urine dip that I need to. So that's why I was all distracted for a hot second.
Yeah, my husband,
juggling all the things.
My husband and I always say, like, right now we're in the era of always saying we should do things, and he tells me he hates the word "should" in my vocabulary. So anytime the word "should" comes out of my mouth, I'm like, take it back. But now we're in our era of stop talking and start doing. And I feel like that speaks a lot to that strength training element, doing the little things as you're getting older in the sport, but like getting faster. It sounds like all the little things are adding up. And I think that's what we're going to see is like those little things are extremely valuable and almost as valuable as the day-to-day training that you're knocking out.
Right. Yeah, I know it's hard because, like, especially when you look at Strava and you're like, oh my God, they're throwing down these miles. Like, I don't have time to put that many miles in a week and do all the other stuffs. And I think it's like, I think this race kind of shows that, like, I didn't throw down multiple 100+ mile weeks beforehand. I did. I think I'm a generally higher mileage human in general. But it wasn't nearly what other people are doing. But I did do a lot of all the prehabbing PT stuff, did do weights much more regularly. And I don't know if that had a huge role in it, right? But it's sometimes like, just because Strava says you didn't like hit this many miles this week, doesn't mean you're not putting work in, and work that will keep you healthy or keep you fast or keep you, healthy. So yeah, that was I think I was definitely a little intimidated by some of people's Strava miles. And I was like, oh God, I don't have that.
Leah's the queen of low mileage.
Yeah, I will preach
performance
it all day.
Yeah. I think the strength part really pays off in a race like Havalina, because I did see a lot of people coming in on the men's and women's fields. And I was actually supposed to pace Corinne Malcolm, and she ended up pulling out on lap 3 with a hip issue. But I think the sandiness was like really messing with a lot of people, because it's like you dig in and you kind of go backwards, and like if you do that every step, like that's not how we run normally, you know?
Right, yeah. Mammoth, I think that's where I messed up my hip, that hip flexor too, because there was really sandy parts. And so I kind of got that like kick in the butt, hip issues, whenever that was, and was like very diligent about like, I think I Googled like every hip exercise known to man, and was like doing, I think it took like over an hour every other day of like,
oh my God.
Some of it I did in the sauna though. I got very efficient while in the sauna doing like the toe rises and the you know, those kind of things. So,
yeah. So you can do your makeup, do your hip exercises, read your saucy novel.
right. Watching a movie or reading a book, and while doing strength training in the sauna, also showering them.
I know it's definitely way too soon to talk about what's next in your ultra running adventures, but what are goals that you have for yourself over the next 1 year, 2 years in the sport? Where do you kind of see Lauren in the next couple of years here?
Yeah. Part of me every once in a while thinks that I should try some sub-ultra distances, but I think that would be silly because those are really hard. I think I'd rather run 100 miles. You know, like I said, I think my big goal was to improve on Western States. Maybe just I need more time to think about it. I don't know if I'm going to do another Western States golden ticket race, or if I just do other fun races. Like I said, there's kind of this aspect of like, how much longer can I do these? Maybe it's time to do some other races instead of like Black Canyon again or Havalina again, like some other races, just to have like little runcations and go places and experience new trails and meet more people. And so I'm kind of leaning more towards that. I think not giving up, if you will, but just the like, maybe we'll set this aside as like a, you know, let it kind of simmer for a bit and do some other just cup filling races, you know, to go have fun. But I'll probably not actually go to the sub-ultra distance because those people are fast.
You're good at that stuff, though. You are the queen of like all those Aravapa Colorado races. I swear there's like every third week in the summer I see on their Instagram like Lauren Peretz, new course record.
Yeah.
What the heck, Lauren?
Right? But those are what I do for training runs, because I'm not good at pushing myself in my own workout. So if I have like a long run workout, I just do one of those. That way I'll actually push myself. So that's why I do all of them.
So smart.
Yeah.
I love that too, that you can kind of identify that you don't want to put everything in the one basket of pursuing this dream and kind of lose like who you are and your love of running along the way. You know, I feel like that's really important for your own mental health.
Right. Like, or am I going to get like discouraged if I go for another goal and I don't get it? Will that put me in a sadder spot? Or will it be more sad that I didn't try? Right. And I don't know where I am on that decision yet. I will have to digest it for a while and decide, but I'm leaning towards kind of just doing races that I haven't done before to kind of like go new places, meet more people, you know, at the competitions. I think is so fun. So that's what I'm leaning towards, but I haven't decided officially yet.
The season is young.
That's right. I know.
Do you have any desire to do like a more mountainous race, or do you think your heart lies with the more kind of runnable, fast side of trail running?
I like them both. There were times yesterday. Oh my God, it's not yesterday. Saturday that I was, that I was like, I wish this was steeper and longer so I could have a reason to hike right now. And so that kind of, yeah, like maybe I'll go do more of those. But they also really scare me. Like something like Hard Rock is like, you're out there for a long time. That is really scary, especially because I don't do well in cold. And I like Run Rabbit. It's always been on that, like, I kind of want to do it, but starting at night and by yourself sounds terrifying. And so, yeah, there's a bunch of those on my list. that always, for one reason or another, kind of scare me, whether it's the duration or whether it's the night part or getting cold part, that makes me real nervous.
Yeah, so much out there to do. And I do think you'd be
Right.
very good at Run Rabbit. The nighttime does suck, but it's kind of fun.
Now the book on tape.
I
right?
know, exactly.
Just chilling with all your best friends.
Well, Lauren, we better let you get to your day job, which you sound quite busy. But we're so happy you could join us today. A privilege to get to chat with you after your third place at Havalina and just get to know a little bit more about you. I feel like you've been on the scene for a while now, and I think it's really exciting to be able to showcase just like the badass women who are balancing a lot of things out there and crushing the sport while they're at it. So thank you.
Right. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was so fun to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Trail Network podcast today. This episode has been brought to you by Osprey and edited by Sandy Boy Productions. We absolutely love feedback, and we would love to hear what you thought. You can drop us a message through our Instagram, the Trail Network Pod, and you can find this episode and previous episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We'll see you soon.